So this is Group 2, Module 5, webinar discussion. So first question, what is dominant versus non-dominant cultural capital?
The non-dominant it involves like the language, dress, the music of a certain culture. And then the dominant, did you comment about the dominant?
I was just going to say the non-dominant kind of goes with what we would describe as like the lower status individuals, the lower class individuals, and the dominant is more like the white man kind of culture right now that is leading everything, kind of has power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked at I kind of thought about it as I was reading the non-dominant being more of a cultural view, like Holly, you were saying, the dress, the music, and kind of the ways that people choose to live and incorporate their culture, versus the dominant where you're trying to conform to that white ideal that you were talking about, Jeff. Mm-hmm. And, doing what's quote unquote acceptable and normal in the view of our society. Question 2, how can teachers value Black cultural capital?
So, I think that it's really important for teachers to recognize Black culture as a culture that has value. And if you are a white teacher that's teaching students of color, really giving them space to express their culture and express their culture, to represent their culture in a positive way, kind of outside of like the heroes and holidays, and really incorporating, people that they are excited about right now, even if that is like, rappers or celebrities or, whoever, just people that they're excited about, and incorporating them and like bringing community members in and being able to like really value their intelligences and their knowledge, place for that to shine. It's really, really important. Also, the readings mentioned the importance of being a cultural guide for these students and being that teacher that is available for students that are possibly of a marginalized group, and like giving them access to help with institutions that are not built for them. So helping them with college applications, with essay writing, resumes, things like that. And, while respecting their individuality and culture, like giving them kind of like the tips and tricks to be able to navigate, white society so they're able to infiltrate it. Until we become a more truly inclusive society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I thought to kind of go along with what you were saying, that Yasso article talked about moving from a deficit viewpoint. So it's not their fault that they aren't necessarily equipped with those things that you were talking about, Lizzie, but that they have a different set of skills available to them, and we should really draw on those. And build off of those rather than looking at it as a loss of what they don't have.
Right.
Carter mentioned in his article, he said that he found no evidence that their preference for the Black culture capital lessened their desire for high academics and career aspirations. And like you said, Hillary, with, sometimes teachers go into the classroom looking at these children, bringing in like a deficit. We need to just realize that it's not a deficit, that they are still there for high academics and want to aspire to go to college and to get jobs and just to, to contribute to society.
I was kind of thinking of this metaphor as I was reading that article about, like, acknowledging Black knowledge and community cultural wealth, and I kind of thought of the metaphor of like schools being a place where it's a knowledge pool without a shallow end. You know what I mean? Just like a deep pool where there's not one end that's seen as less or like less important or less deep or less valuable, and really being a place where it's like a humanistic, communal skill share and knowledge share. So that's where we're kind of navigating toward.
Yep.
I like that metaphor.
Yes.
Next question, number 3. What is the pedagogy of poverty?
I had marked down from the Ladson Building article that the poverty is that schools that serve that community or that group of people, the kids just get basics, the scripted lessons, the regimentation of the school, like uniforms. The building itself just feels like a prison. And the ways that the families are treated. In fact, the school that I was at in Charlotte, North Carolina, reminded me a great deal of the methods from the pedagogy of poverty. That, you know, the kids were in uniforms, and we did have a very scripted, very prejudicial kind of reading regimen that we used. That in fact we had gone to a workshop to learn how to use this particular reading materials. We were even told that, your kids won't get this because it's just too above their heads. So I experienced a lot of the pedagogy of poverty in the school that I was at, but it's definitely a very strict environment.
Yeah, I also really related to this article, man. Like, it inspired me to want to read that book about the big lies. Like teaching in the New Orleans school system, which became a experiment after Katrina, where they restructured it into a charter school system. They're using kids as guinea pigs, and I could speak for a million hours about this, but like charter school system really does reflect what this book was saying, with like putting kids in uniforms basically to like look the part, to like parochial schools and higher class schools physically, but not, their academics are not reflective and their behavior is not reflective. Like, it didn't behavior change. And, you know, the walking in silence, the walking on lines that definitely exists in New Orleans culture is very common. And, you know, it is reflective of the prison industrial complex. So it's, yeah, very eye-opening. And I agree with you, Holly, that, like, what that book is saying is so real. I think of, like, suburban teachers and families and students really don't know that this is in existence. You know, this kind of, like, institutional school environments that are in urban settings and with students of color and impoverished students.
And this kind of leads nicely into the next question. How can teachers disrupt the pedagogy of poverty within middle to high income and low income schools?
I think the first thing kind of comes with teachers' instructional practices and how they interact with the kids in their classrooms. And I think we just need to set those high expectations for all students and then kind of scaffold their learning, whether they're in the poverty or if they are at the higher social economic end of the classes, I guess. But just making sure that, we're offering what we can to each level of students, no matter what class they're in or what community they're in.
And to go along with what Lizzie and Holly, you were saying, we have to move away from those scripted curriculums. We have to give the students some freedom in the classroom and when they're walking in the halls. Obviously you want them to still be respectful, you want them to still follow the rules, but not making them feel like prisoners and actually making them feel like any other child, that's in the school or in other communities around them. It also mentioned to involve the families, teach them. So give them the opportunity to come into school, whether it be during the school day or, after school programs. I know there's districts around here that they offer nights for families to come in and learn the programs that we're teaching. Because even the math that we're doing or the reading we're doing is different than what parents grew up with. So, give them the opportunity to learn as well so that they can help their kids at home, or at least be exposed to what they're doing.
They were called curriculum nights.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have a reading curriculum night, we'd have a math curriculum night, and they were always well attended.
Yeah.
And the parents were always very appreciative.
And I think that kind of gets away sometimes too. You associate poverty with a desire, like parents don't have a desire for their students to be educated, or it's not important in their lives. When that's not always the case, then we can't just assume that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely.
Next question: I'm sorry. Where am I? Has high socioeconomic status groups. How can educators still counter a pedagogy of poverty?
I think it was really interesting in the reading. Let's see, which article was it? But in one of my articles, talking about really involving your kids in discussions of poverty. It was in Pathologizing the Poor Implications for Preparing Teachers. That article, really having explicit conversations with students about poverty, and they talked about doing that with students in low-income or urban schools. But I think it would be just as effective for high-income and middle-class schools, that really for them to realize, no one was talking to me in my middle-class school about how poverty is a result of, systemic racism and capitalism. We were definitely taught that, all the things we mentioned in these articles, that people are poor because they're not working hard enough. They're lazy. They're not doing the bootstrap myth. And realizing, teaching these affluent kids, privileged kids, that it's not an individual's fault. It truly is, the result of hundreds of years of oppression, and you can't really put that on individuals or families or neighborhoods. So having those discussions, activities, I think would be really beneficial for future generations. Also, talking about how poverty does affect learning. And if you have a kid that is, even if you are in an affluent school, you still might have the poor kid in class, thinking about ways to support that kid who might be getting lost in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
With that same article, Lizzie, towards the end of it talks about a context-neutral approach that kind of evaporates the differences that students face. And it goes in to say, how poverty in urban areas are different from rural, which are different from southern areas. And I never really thought about how poverty kind of looks different within different contexts and different places within the United States. So that's something that kind of brought an awareness to me that I never really thought about, of how poverty can look so different between different places.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think a lot of times too, we come from my district is very affluent, but we do have kids that are on that get free lunch, and then we do have kids that are on reduced lunch, and it's going to look very different, and, it shouldn't be something that's shamed, but it is, that's a great point, that it is very different, that we need to understand where it came from and how it evolved.